What's up, everybody? Welcome to the channel. Mr. Dan, of course, as always. And tonight I've got a special guest on. I've got Mike from Mike's DVD and Blu-ray collection. We've done a bunch of whole live streams before, and I consider Mike to be an expert in film noir and westerns. Make sure you guys check out his channel. I've got it pinned, or I think they call it starred now. I was trying to pin it, but it's got a star next to it, so I think it's going to stay at the top.
Oh,
I got the link.
Okay.
Yeah, I think because I know StreamYard changed some stuff around. They went ahead and put a little ad themselves in the. It's funny, like if you were to go on early and look, there's a little ad that pops up. So it's like, oh, you already got somebody who might be a referral because they clicked on, StreamYard or something. So I know they changed some things.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but we've got Mike's channel pinned or starred or whatever there. So make sure you guys go and check it out if you're watching the replay, of course. So yeah, we're just going to talk a little bit about film noir, genre I've kind of been interested in off and on over the years. But with the combination of getting to know Mike and then realizing a lot of these movies were on Tubi and a lot of them were available in compilations, relatively cheap. I've just watched a ton of them. And then in the second half, we're going to talk a little bit about Westerns. Not really the big ones, the John Waynes or the Clint Eastwoods. We're going to talk about some of the lesser-known Westerns. And then at the end, we're just going to talk about some of the actors and the directors who have been in some of these films. And it's just going to be kind of a free-form thing. So like I mentioned earlier, right before we went live, and I had a video come out today about T-Men, which is a film noir that I actually rented in high school, which was kind of unusual, not something I would rent with my friends. They wouldn't have been interested. But like, when did you get into these type of films? Was it like as a young guy, or were you a little bit older?
Pretty much probably around the same age as you, probably like a preteen kind of person. I discovered, I had seen some older movies younger. Like I saw Charlie Chaplin's The Gold Rush when I was younger. I was kind of fascinated at it because it was silent and it was kind of different. Mm-hmm. And then later on I got, it was probably like 1990 or so. And there was the TNT channel, which is, I believe it's still on, but back when they showed like cartoons and old movies and stuff on there, I started catching a few, and I saw my first like foreign language movie, silent movies they had on there, and really the Marx Brothers, the comedy team, kind of got me in there for some weird reason. I just clung to these, I was just fascinated again and stuff, and I saw some war movies and different stuff like that. And, this was pre-internet and stuff, so you had to kind of either go to the library and find a book or just go to your video store to the classics section, and hopefully they had something you had heard of.
Right.
But, there was no Amazon or eBay then. You couldn't just buy VHS tapes and stuff. But probably 90, 89, 90, somewhere in there. It was probably like 13, 14 or something like that.
Yeah. And I guess I was more like, I have memories of watching TV from like the mid 70s on. So the UHF channels used to rerun movies, maybe not some of these movies per se, but Bogart, Cagney, John Wayne, used to see the ads for them, and some of these films I still haven't seen, but I vividly remember the ads. I think that was probably still going on when you were watching TV,
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. You see like the little bumpers. I think they called them bumpers back then. Like coming Wednesday at 8 p.m.
Yeah.
Catch Humphrey Bogart in the Big Sleep.
Yeah. And you know what? I think now all of a sudden I have this kind of a memory. I think it was PBS that showed Detour. That's where I think I saw Detour, because PBS would pull in some unusual movies. I watched like they had Rashomon on one night. And I was, I think I was a little too young to even understand what was going on, but it was, I knew it had to do with samurais, and I was into Japan and everything. So PBS had some pretty interesting films that they showed, but then later, like TNT, TBS, they really kind of opened up a lot of eyeballs to these type of films, for sure.
Well,
and Kenny's
funny.
here?
It's funny that you mentioned Rashomon. Hey, Kenny. Oh, dropped out for a second.
Yeah, that's okay.
It's funny you mentioned Rashomon. You mentioned Rashomon. That was like one of the first foreign language movies I saw on TNT, and I was fascinated. Toshiro Mifune and Akira Kurosawa, and that movie like blew me away. Even though it's kind of it's not like action packed.
No, not really.
You kind of watched it and unfolded on you. And I liked how it was like told backwards, kind of from different points of views and stuff. And I loved it. I thought that was cool. And then later on, I saw like Qui-Gon, which was kind of a semi-horror type movie. But it was just, what was cool about TNT is they would show the movies letterboxed back then.
Yes. Okay.
And Qui-Gon is like this big widescreen color movie, and it was awesome and everything. But I have to say though, there was another channel called AMC, American Movie Classics, and we didn't get that channel, but my grandpa did. So I would go there and bother my grandpa, bring him a blanket. Frankenstein is coming on this week, and the Mummy and stuff. Will you tape it?
And the Wolfman. No, I'm kidding.
Wait a second. My son walked in, and my dog.
Okay. No problem. And let me just say hi to Sean from Movie Salt is here. Joe, the horror man, is here, and Jim is here. There ain't no party like an intro party, because an intro party don't start. No, not really.
That's funny. Hey, Sean. Hey, horror man, and Jim, and Kenny. Yeah, I think I already said it.
Yep. Okay. Cool. Now, on my channel a few weeks ago, I reviewed this Hammer film, Cash on Demand, which was more of a heist kind of a movie. But I was curious, so I checked out on YouTube to see if Eddie Muller had ever introduced it. He has the Noir program, as we were talking about, on cable. And he did, and he actually said, bear with me, guys. This might not technically be a Noir, but it's going to fit. And I thought that was kind of cool, because I don't think either one of us are going to get wrapped around the axle about definitions. We're here to just enjoy the movies. You know what I'm saying? But obviously there's some overlap with some crime films. So what do you, like, when you think of film noir, though, what do you sort of think of Mike?
Well, I was trying to think of like what was the first movie I saw that was considered like a noir movie or something, and I didn't really know what that was until I saw this documentary called Visions of Light. And they were talking about cinematographers. The whole thing is about cinematographers. And they had a whole big section about this guy named John Alton, who was a cameraman, cinematographer for like T-Men and a bunch of stuff with Anthony Mann. And I was like blown away by this black and white stuff. It was like, wow, this is so cool and interesting. But then I knew, like, okay, that's film noir. This is something else. But I would still consider, like, the Maltese Falcon and stuff to be the kind of the quote film noir and stuff like that.
Right. Which is interesting because that one, I'm sorry. Yeah, that one I remember watching, like my way to watch. To be honest, I remember like nothing about it. It's that kind of a movie. Whereas T-Men, I remembered like parts of it from, a long time ago. We'll just say that.
Yeah, that's a great movie. I remember when you talked about today, it's like, man, I've seen it a handful of times at least, and it's such a good movie because a lot of the actors, some of them were known at the time, but a lot of them were kind of unknowns, and it was so cool with like the plates. They're trying to sell these plates and smuggle these to print money with, and I mean, there was some really good tension in that movie and
Yeah,
stuff, and
yeah.
it
Like
was
I said, that.
completely on a low budget. And I
Yeah,
think they
yeah.
just
You could tell. I
yeah,
kind
like
of like they
yeah,
didn't
like
have
a
any.
complete
Yeah, they didn't have any like foggy streets,
yeah.
but they had all the scenes in the bathhouse with the steam, and those close up
Mhm.
shots and
Yeah,
everything. Yeah,
yeah. Use some dry ice or something, get some smoke going, and then
Mhm.
like that was what's cool about some film noir because it's like makes stuff shadowy. Let's just use this one light and we'll just shine it over here and have the actress walk out or walk into it, and it's like back then they were look at it and be like, oh, this is so cheap. This is a cheapo movie or something like
yeah,
in
yeah,
the
right.
industry or something.
Right.
But people like the French started seeing stuff like this, and they kind of came up with film noir, which
Yeah,
is just basically it's a crime movie, crime action kind of mystery or
yeah,
something, but it's done where it's um, I don't know. It's like the directors would have like Anthony Mann and some of these people were known as like these what's the word, like auteurs. They're
yeah.
auteurs, like
Mhm.
everything they did was interesting and different and stuff like that. So, but
Yeah.
yeah, like T-Men and
Mhm.
stuff like that is just man, just a great example of a film noir.
Yeah, definitely. Sure.
And
Yeah.
I'm
So
trying
I
to think
think
of some. Yeah.
yeah, and also like voiceovers is a characteristic, and then you have like morally ambiguous characters, whether they're cops or
Mm-hmm.
crooks or uh I think a lot of them were set like right after World
Mm-hmm.
War II, around that time, like The Crooked Way with John Payne. He comes back, he's got amnesia, and
Oh
he
yeah.
used to be a criminal, and he doesn't really remember being a
Mm-hmm.
criminal. And the
That
criminal are like, let's go, let's get back in business. That one's a little
yeah.
more hit you over the head, uh, with the plot. But and
Yeah.
and Jim mentioned Double Indemnity. I just watched that
Yeah. Yeah.
rewatched
That
that
one.
last.
Yeah. And it's funny though. Oh yeah, Double Indemnity. See, like that was like 1944, and it wasn't quite after the war yet, but one of those is kind of like the first ones that kind of established this
Yeah.
like storyline, like darker storyline, like you wouldn't see. Like they're gonna scheme together. They're not only are they she's cheating on her husband, but she's gonna murder him, and he's like portraying his boss, and it's just all this betrayal and stuff that you weren't seeing before, realistically
Right.
stuff, and usually a good film noir will have a bad woman, a woman gone bad, or someone who kind of leads this guy down a path he would have normally not went down and stuff. And that's kind of what Barbara Stanwyck did in Double Indemnity
Yeah.
and stuff. So
Oh, definitely.
yeah, that's one of the prime classics of noir.
And the dialogue too is a great example. That sort of staccato back and forth. And apparently, like
Mm-hmm.
I've got things popping up on Instagram because I watched it. So apparently, Fred McMurray he turned it down. He was like, this is going to require real acting. He was like kind of afraid of it, but he was talked into doing it. And people forget he was like a pretty big movie star back then before he became like known as a TV guy with My Three Sons. But
Yeah. Yeah, that's what's funny. He was even in westerns. He was even in some westerns that are kind of oddballs that we will probably talk about. But he had a career going all the way back to like the mid 30s and stuff.
Yeah.
That was You wouldn't have thought of that, this TV guy.
Right. And he was a big box office draw too. For a couple years there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Jim mentioned DOA. That's a classic. Yeah. And that's one, a lot of these have such intricate plots that you could watch them 6 months later and get something else out of them, like, I could give you the bare bones of
DOA.
DOA.
Definitely, especially DOA.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny. It's such a simple type of movie, but I watched it like a few months ago and I was into it again, and I've noticed stuff I didn't notice before. And what's a shame about movies like DOA and like Detour and stuff, or they were made independently by this producer. They weren't made for a studio per se. So
Right. Mhm.
after a while, their stuff wasn't renewed, so it slipped into the public domain real quick. And now that's why you see like zillion copies, and they're all like crappy, and that can turn you off from watching it altogether.
Yeah.
And
for example,
a
20 movie set and a 10 movie set.
Yeah,
the
exactly.
quality does vary for sure.
Yeah. See, DOA needs a really nice addition to come out. Somebody needs to find it and just restore it a little bit, because it belongs up there. It is a total classic. And
I grabbed this. This probably is more of a crime than a noir, but what Arrow did for Desperate Hours. I mean, they did a fantastic job with this. What a fantastic movie. But that looks fantastic. Having said that, if you look on Tubi, you will find some that do look really pretty good. I was watching one when my brother was living here. He walked by. He was like, "Wait a minute, when was that movie made?" I was like 46, and he was like, "What?" He couldn't believe it. So it varies like greatly. But the compilations can dispiriting you sometimes.
Yeah. I think some of these companies, they'll do like a high definition scan of it without really restoring it, so it kind of brightens it up, and it looks better than it ever did, but it's not quite like where it should be. But it's still like, wow, this looks good for what it is, And
all right, and we got some comments. Stacy from Acres of Movies is asking about Cast a Dark Shadow. Have you seen that?
Cast a Dark Shadow. No, I don't think I've seen that. Like, he was more of like an English actor. He was a really popular English actor, but I haven't seen that one.
And Kenny's mentioning the Touch of Evil and the Setup on YouTube. The Setups on YouTube. Yes, there are some pretty good ones on YouTube for sure. How about either one of them?
Yeah, the Setups. Yeah, the Setup's a good one. And Touch of Evil, that's a Orson Welles movie, and
right.
It's really, really good
with Heston,
and he uses like a handheld camera, Charlton Heston and stuff, and it's a beautiful looking movie. I mean, there's a bunch of different editions out there that all look good. That's a great.
Yeah, a few of these guys really, low budget and everything. They did. I was just reading about that, how some of them used handheld cameras, and they really kind of experimented a lot. It was pretty interesting.
And they would like. I was going to say they use like real locations and stuff. They would just they wouldn't have a permit or nothing. They'd just get out there and start shooting some scenes on the road, on the highway, or whatever in the city.
4 o'clock in the morning, or Jim says the greatest.
Dead Men Wear Plaid.
Yeah, I've got to rewatch that. And how about, and then we got The Street of Chance with Burgess Meredith and Strange Love of Martha Ivers. I've seen that pop up, but I've never actually watched it.
Oh yeah. The Strange Love of Martha Ivers is a great one. That's a real twisted movie. Kirk Douglas is really good in it. I haven't seen Street of Chance though. I might have to check that out. Because you're right, Tubi has a lot of stuff, and
they do
stuff you've never seen. I think there's even a Film Noir app that you can download for your Roku or Amazon Fire Stick that has a bunch of stuff like that.
And actually, I actually found out about these Hammer Noir films from YouTube. There was a channel called Sprocket Vault that had a bunch of them. So there's one called Stolen Face with I think it was
Elizabeth Scott.
Elizabeth Scott, kind of a little bit of a, I don't want to say, maybe a little sci-fi angle with the whole face operation, and then Terror Street with Dan Duryea, and then I actually started to get some of the compilations because they really put out a lot. Hammer back in the day, and even Terrence Fisher directed a few of them before he got into Dracula and The Mummy and Frankenstein and everything. And I, a lot of those movies, they would the British ones would try to get like put one American in there, you know, like Cesar Romero or Dan Duryea to help market it, you know.
Yeah, and what was that one guy that who was it? Oh, was in the sci-fi movie. It's a Hammer movie. Something not Experiment, but maybe it was Experiment. I know you'll know this one.
You talking about Quatermass?
Quatermass, yeah.
Yeah,
with what's his name?
Brian Donlevy.
Well, that guy.
He was in the
that's
first.
him. Yeah, that's him.
Yeah.
So he did a bunch. Yeah, but he had done a bunch of stuff like that back in the day. He's done some westerns and film noirs, all the way back to the 1930s and stuff.
Yeah.
So they would, like you said, they would stick him in there.
Yeah. His
last box office draw.
Right. To have someone recognizable and stuff. Yeah. That's why, like, I know the author of the Quatermass Experiment wasn't too big on him. So when they made a third film with I can't remember the name of the actor, but you know, a British actor, he was like, oh, now we have a proper Dr. Quatermass, but that's what they did it for the American audience. His last film was that one I mentioned a few weeks ago, Pit Stop with Sid Haig.
Oh,
that
was
Brian.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, I had only seen Quatermass 1 and 2, and then it went to like a color movie, like in the 60s or something.
Yeah,
like
that's a really good one.
That one yet.
Yeah, you got to check that one out. And then have you seen any of the French noir ones? Have you got?
I actually have a couple. Yeah, I've got a few of them, but I haven't watched one that's a total classic French one. I haven't watched it yet.
Right. These were good. This collection from Kino. Kino does, you know, obviously they do work with.
Jean Gabon, I think Gabon. Gabon. He was a super cool actor, and he did a bunch of those in his late career. He would do a bunch of crime movies and stuff.
And then
Jeff.
You had a video a while back. I just saw it. I don't know if I watched it. I might have watched it before, where you talked about neo-noir movies, and you mentioned Revenge, the Kevin Costner movie, Tony Scott movie. Like, even though they were using color, they still filmed them in such a way where the colors were stark or washed out. I noticed they switched to like desert locations a lot in like the 90s. Have you seen any of the we mentioned Kill Me Again, because it was the John Dahl movies. You had Kill Me Again with Val Kilmer, Red Rock West with Nicolas Cage, and then The Last Seduction. Do you remember when those came out, like the 90s?
Yeah, I didn't see that first one, but Red Rock West is really good. Then what was that movie that Don Johnson was in? What's that guy directed? It's really good. It's got the beautiful, what's her name? Drawing a complete blank on me. I didn't even think to go through those and jot them down so I would remember them. What's that called? The director was Dennis Hopper.
Okay.
I know somebody's got to know this.
Okay. Yeah. I know. I know what you mean, but I don't know.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Hot Night or something like that. I don't remember. Yeah, I don't remember. But I just wanted to mention those.
Yeah, I'll look it up.
So some people have a thing with black and white.
Yeah, those were both. Yeah. I mean, that's why kind of the neo-noir, which I'm still trying to put out I've done little ones I've put out, but I want to make kind of a definitive one and show some ones. Because, all the way back to the early 80s, they did like a remake of the Postman Always Rings Twice with Jack Nicholson. And it was like real steamy. And that's a remake of the 1940s one. And, and it was, it was kind of true to form, like, had that element still in. A lot of people hated it. It wasn't very popular, but it's pretty good now. But the movie, what's that movie called? Gosh,
I like the remake of Postman Always Rings I haven't seen the original actually, but I now I want to.
Yeah, they're both good. They're both well worth watching.
And let me just say hi to Jeff from 101 Bronson.
But yeah, I mean,
Dead Bang.
Hey there, Jeff. Yeah, the hot spot. The hot spot. That's it. Thanks, Kenny.
Okay.
The hot spot. Okay. Yeah, that's well worth it. That's you got everything you need in it. You got the hot girl that's either true or not true with you. You got the bank robbery. You got the heist. You got the whole setup, the location. It's a perfect neo noir movie.
Okay.
For sure.
Yeah, I remember that, but I never actually saw it. Yeah, for some people, seeing a Nicolas Cage movie or a Val Kilmer movie might be a little more open to seeing that than going back and seeing an older film, even though I would recommend it, of course. But and then let me go out on a limb here because, I mean, the name of my channel and my shirt and everything, but John Dahl eventually would direct Joyride, which is pretty much a straight up horror movie, but it has those sort of chance meetings on the road that you saw in a lot of film noir movies. And then even I think there's some influences with like The Hitcher from the 80s.
Yeah, exactly. Like that could almost be it. I mean, it's kind of a combination of like a slasher movie, a psycho movie. Like this guy's just won't stop and stuff.
Yeah.
I guess it's more of a horror. I guess you could say a horror. I don't know, slasher.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I just think it's
still got those not tendencies, but it's got all the right things that they could have went that way with it. Would have been a good one. But.
Yeah, like just some of the aesthetic and everything. Jim says the hot spot equals the Yam Hall of Fame. Okay, I have to watch that. Check that out.
Yeah. Oh, it's great.
All right. Yeah. So anyway, we'll circle back and talk about some more noir films in a little bit here, but just when we talk about some of the actors and directors and everything. But as far as Westerns go, were you like growing up, were you into like the sort of the big name ones? Like if an Eastwood movie was on TV, we probably watched it. Not as much John Wayne. That was just because my dad's personal preference, but I did see a lot of the big name ones, and Jimmy Stewart, et cetera, et cetera. But were you into those as a young guy also?
Well, the Clint Eastwood, connection there, but really, growing up, I can't think of any of them that really got me until I saw The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Like a lot of people. That's a kind of an intro movie to Westerns and stuff. Plus it had Clint in it. But when I watched it, I started discovering, the director and what he was doing and how this isn't exactly like American movies in a way. Right. So it was always a big curiosity before I even saw the other two in that trilogy. But The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly was a big gateway Western. Not so much John Wayne until later on, because my dad he liked John Wayne, but he was more into Clint Eastwood, I would say.
Yeah, that's the same here. So, I knew of a lot of John Wayne movies. I never saw them.
I knew. Yeah, I knew of him and stuff like that, but there wasn't that one movie that grabbed me, But I think when I saw The Searchers, or maybe even Stagecoach, I was like, yeah, I like this. I like the director. See, I was stuck on directors for a long time and stuff, so they were both John Ford movies. So, just kind of got into them. But then as I've gotten older, I've really discovered them big time. Got more into them as a collector, as a film fan buff, I guess you could say, collector, and. Just wow, it's blowing my mind. It's I wish I would have discovered them earlier on, but
yeah.
And
Jeff mentioned
definitely Clint Eastwood.
Yeah. And to be fair, most video stores did have a lot of Clint Eastwood films, you know, some of the older ones.
Mhm.
Jeff mentions Fistful of Dollars for him. I remember renting the whole Dollars trilogy. Kenny says Winchester
Mhm.
73 was big in his house. Yeah, I remember that one on TV quite a bit, but I don't remember if I watched it. When did you start getting into some of like the lesser known sort of Westerns that didn't necessarily have some of those, you know, John Wayne or Clint Eastwood or anything?
Yeah. You know, as of probably in the last 25, 30 years, probably, but I've always rooted for the underdog, kind of the film that was good, but nobody really knew about it as much. Kind of off the beaten path movies, like movies that just weren't household names and stuff. And what I discovered was there was just so many great movies like that, and actors and directors, actresses that did these movies, and they're just not really forgotten about, but just not as big in, I guess, the U.S. I mean, I know in Germany they're nuts about American Westerns and stuff, and all the way back, and they'll put out these really nice editions. So like when I got an all region Blu-ray player, it was on, because then I could get movies from Europe, and it was So and I would go down these rabbit holes. I'm just like, okay, I'm going to watch this, and then this leads to this, and I looked up something about that. And before I know it, I got all these movies under my belt and stuff.
Right. Like, well, let me just bring up two that I watched because you introduced them to me. One was John Payne movie, Silver Load, with Dan Duryea.
Silver Load.
Yeah, that's a good one for sure. Elizabeth Scott again.
Yeah, she was pretty big for a good little second there in the late 40s to the mid 50s, and then she kind of fell off.
Yeah, it's funny how,
but yeah, that's a good one.
That works. Yeah. And Jeff says Germany is definitely the spaghetti Western capital of the world. Yeah. I believe it with some of the releases. And then another one, it would be I mentioned this a little while ago. Kind of a strange one. 5-Card Stud.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What you think? What did you think was strange about it? Like just not altogether strange, but just it
was like a murder mystery, but just happened to be in the Old West. You know what I mean? And 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 I kind of like the way that some of the characters were probably a little more realistic. Like they probably were guys like Roddy McDowall. Kind of thought they were tough, but they really weren't. And they were conniving. Not everybody was like larger than life, I'm sure, back then. It was just different. And what can you say? Pretty good cast all around. So
and even was it Yaphet Kotto, the black actor that's in there. He, I didn't expect him to be really in the cast. He wasn't like some servant or something. He was an actual guy. He was an equal to everyone, and you're right. It was like a mystery and stuff. But I thought it was just kind of oddball though, but oddball. You know what I mean? Kind of. But it's pretty cool.
But interesting. And then I don't have it, and I don't remember the name of it off the top of my head. But the thing is, like with Westerns, sometimes it's surprising you see Yaphet Kotto. I know there's one I just watched a little while ago, but Vincent Price and Clint Walker were in a movie together. That's definitely like a bit of an oddball movie.
That was More Dead. Was it
More Dead Than Alive?
Or something like that. Yeah. Which was cool because it was like this little carnival type of thing. They would go from town to town, and he was a sharpshooter. But then they meet their match with this other guy, and it's really cool. And Vincent Price didn't do a whole lot of Westerns like that. He did a few, he did a few here and there, but it just made it odd. And Clint Walker was pretty cool. A lot of people, maybe they forget him, but he did a good little set of movies there for a while, and he's kind of forgotten about.
I've been rediscovering
so that's like him, for example. Like I would look up his movies and oh man, I like this one, and this one's good, but nobody really knows about him per se, So
Yeah. Yeah. He
So those
did
are
that.
like the ones I'm drawn to.
Yeah. He did that. Yeah. Once you like stumble on someone like that, because he did that strong silent type thing like so well,
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's the thing. Like, you think of an actor, you say, I wonder if he was in a Western, and it's possible that, like, even with someone like Vincent Price, that they were. And actually, yeah. And let me give you some credit, because you just mentioned this sort of out of the blue. You had a guy on a while back who has a show every Saturday morning, Sunset Cuddy. He restores, old movies, like the old Westerns, like 20s, 30s, the ones that were almost like more comedy, singing Westerns, those kind of things. So I just wanted to mention that because I thought that was a really cool interview.
Yeah, Gino. He works tirelessly on these movies, and he kind of focuses more on like the B westerns. Like there's all these guys that kind of came out of the silent cowboy movies back then, and they're the ones that would wear these like 10-gallon hats and stuff like that, and they would be like done on the ultra cheap. And there's so many of them. There's all these actors, and they're just so forgotten about now. And he's done a lot of work in like getting them. And he's restored a few movies, and he's put them out there. And he does a lot of work. And I've talked to him a few times. Like, man, you've got to write a book for sure about these actors, just to compile them all in one place, so we can look them up and stuff, because they're all fascinating. Guys, and some women out there too, just largely forgotten about now. So,
right. Yeah. I mean,
he does a lot of cool stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. If the people from the 40s and 50s are fading away, then certainly the ones from the 20s and 30s are 20. I mean, I watched a couple episodes. Some of them are, they've got some pretty good comedy in them for sure.
Some of maybe unintentional at times,
right.
but kind of like a trivia fact in a way, John Wayne would have been one of those actors forgotten if John Ford hadn't really gave him a second chance and put him in Stagecoach, because he was doing those kind of movies, like ultra cheap ones. And there's a ton of those out there from the 30s. And,
I did.
And what? Yeah, I mean, he may have fell into that crack too and disappeared like a lot of people. But
I did watch the one he was in. There's this kind of a horror comedy Western one he was in.
He burst on the scene.
Okay, I think you broke up, but I think you brought up. Okay.
Okay, I think we're good.
Yeah. How about like, have you ever checked out any serials? I got this one, The Phantom Rider, and it was like, speaking of 10-gallon hats, this guy had an enormous hat. Kind of goofy, but fun.
Goofy. Yeah, it's like I found the 10-gallon hats to be kind of goofy, and I don't know, I can't take some of them seriously just because of the whole look. But that was the look for those kind of type of movies. Yeah. A lot of them, but not all of them.
One thing I noticed about those, though, the stunts were pretty for real, though. I mean, they were jumping from horse to horse. When they fell off a horse, they fell off a horse. Like that was very legit.
And see, that's another thing with those. There's all these stuntmen that did that stuff, and a lot of them are forgotten about. But there was one guy, he's got a really kind of different name, Yakima Nut.
Yeah. And
he was a stuntman. He did all this. I don't know if you can still remember. He did all this stuff in Stagecoach, that famous thing where he's under the horses. Like, it's supposed to be John Wayne doing it. And then he went on to do all these other big name movies and stuff. But there was a lot of these stuntmen that they would put it all on the line, to do it. And they weren't getting paid that much either.
No.
They just risk their lives back then and stuff. So that's pretty cool about those.
Well, even that in Raiders of the Lost Ark, when he goes under the truck, that was like a recycled stunt from a Western. I don't forget which one, where somebody did that under a stagecoach.
That was on stage in the movie Stagecoach.
In the movie, that makes sense.
Yeah. That's the same guy, and they kind of copied that and stuff. But that influenced, action movies to come, like that and stuff. So
sure. And Kenny says he loves it when we
but
bring.
no, I never did get it.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was listening to you. No, I was going to say I hadn't really got into any serials, but I had wanted to get into some of them. I might get into the old Dick Tracy ones and stuff like that. There's a compilation, so I might check out that. But yeah, there's a ton of serial type movies out there. Pretty interesting.
Yeah, I got into. I did check out one of the Dick Tracy movies with Boris Karloff, Dick Tracy Meets Gruesome, and then I kind of got a whole 3-film set. And I think I have some serials. I got some serials too. I think VCI puts out a lot, but I got the cowboy one, Phantom Rider, from them too. And each episode is 15 minutes, so it's it's not like a huge commitment, and you're not expecting the whole world, so they're pretty fun.
Yeah.
Kenny says,
those are pretty cool. I was gonna. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, no. Kenny.
Go ahead, Dan.
Okay, yeah, no problem. Kenny says so many of the westerns had contract players that showed up on so many TV shows and movies. Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was going to say. I was going to mention some other like kind of movies that are kind of under the radar that people might really get into and get into, it might help them get more into westerns from a certain time period and stuff. Like you mentioned Five Card Stud. I was going to mention that. But like Glenn Ford, everybody knows who Glenn Ford is. And he did some pretty good westerns too. That not a lot of people, think of. Like Day of the Evil Gun. That's a pretty good western from the 50s. But yeah, like what was I going to say here? There's a couple of ones here. Well, go ahead. I was going to just mention, like you already brought up John Payne, and he has that total Western and film noir connection because he was just doing good ones in both genres and stuff. Yeah. And I wish he was better known, stuff. Most people just know him from the Christmas movie with Miracle on 34th Street.
Yeah.
But then he did all these other really good movies and stuff. So I wish he was better well known.
Yeah. And then the other one you turned me on to was 99 River Street. That's a really good John Payne movie.
Oh yeah. He's just good, man. He's just got a raw deal, and he's just all in one night. He's just doing all this stuff, and Evelyn Keyes, she's really good in that.
Yeah, she really is.
There's that one scene where she brings him to the studio where she's trying to get a part, and I don't want to give away. It's what happens, but it all turns out to be BS, and he gets really mad and all that stuff. But the first time I saw it, I was like all into it. I was like, oh, what? But then it was like, what the hell, And it was just like, I don't know. It was really good. It was just the way they did it, and it's good on repeat watches and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, he was very solid. I guess maybe because he was pretty tough in that movie, but he was maybe more. I don't know. Even I was going to say he was a smaller guy, more of an average guy. But then again, Cagney, Bogart, all those guys were small. I don't really, So he's lesser known, But
yeah, and a lot of the actors back then were contracted at the studio, so like they'll throw like, well, you got to do a western this week, and they'll be like, I don't want to do a western, but some of them would do it, and that's kind of how Cagney did some westerns and stuff, like the Oklahoma Kid, and then he did some good ones in the 50s and stuff, and he pulled it off. I mean, I always have a saying, Can he wear the hat? Does he wear the hat? And wearing the hat means, yeah, he fits in. You know, he kind of fits in. He's
Right.
more legitimate when you watch him
Mm.
stuff, and I think he passes. He's did some really good movies, westerns and stuff,
Yeah.
and noirs for that matter, because he did White
Oh,
Heat,
yeah.
which is one of the most famous ones. And but yeah, he was really good. Like Dan Duryea,
Oh, yeah.
which yeah, I kind of caught on to him, and like he's almost good in anything. Like anything you watch, he makes it better. But he can do westerns and film noir just like nothing.
Sure.
You know, he was just
Yeah.
perfect at it.
Yeah, he was in when I was watching Terror Street, I was like, who is this guy? You know, even though he plays the protagonist in that one, I read that he usually plays you know, the villain, and it didn't surprise me at all just because of his delivery. And I forget what film it is where because I really want to mention some of the women that appeared in these films, and I don't know if I'm doing a great job, but somebody finds a bag of money, and in a film noir, you don't just find a bag of money with no consequences. So, of course, who shows up but Dan Duryea? And he's like the last person you want coming after you. You know, just something about the guy.
Oh, the movie you're thinking about is that's Lisbeth Scott, and it's called Too Late for Tears.
Yep, that's it. Right.
Too Late for Tears, and they find that money, and then all of a sudden he shows up at the door one day, and they're just like, man, they almost got away with this, and then it just turns into this nightmare for him and everything. But yeah, he can come off like he can be like kind of like a snake kind of thing. He turns, and he's good natured until he turns, and he's like, oh man, he's like, you know, but he's really good at that.
Yeah, he had 2 really good guest starring roles on Rawhide, and in both cases he played like a mysterious sort of character who was like following the cattle drive. And in the one, the way they frame it, you see him in the distance, you see his silhouette a few times, and you know, like Clint would use that kind of shot later in his westerns. I really found that pretty fascinating. You know, I'd like to think that he was like paying attention to what was going on, but yeah, he had that delivery. Oh. Maybe. I'm sorry. Just a second. Did you leave it outside? Sorry, I got it right here.
Oh no, man! Life happens. Believe me. Trying to do a live stream sometimes.
Okay, I'm calling you. Got a lost phone here. We'll see if we can find it. Yeah, Stacy from Acres of Movies says he loves Elizabeth Scott. Yeah, she was good, for sure.
Yeah.
Now I know you mentioned some of the other Sergios. Back to Italy, real quick. And that's one of the things. Like all those guys, you know, the guys in the Talking Westerns podcast. They really turned me on to a lot of the other, if you will, spaghetti westerns. What are some of your favorites from people like Sergio Carbucci?
Like just some of the favorite Sergios.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There's. Oh, okay. Yeah, there's like 4 Sergios, you know, and stuff. But Sergio Corbucci is really kind of underrated, but he's done some great movies like Django, you know, the first Django, and then you know, The Great Silence, stuff like that. But some of my favorite spaghetti westerns are those Keoma. Not so much for the soundtrack, but the movie. Actually, you know, Navajo Joe is a good spaghetti western. Yeah, Keoma. Yeah. The theme music kind of gets you, but if you would just kind of, I don't know, turn it down a little bit and just watch it, it's good. But Navajo Joe was a Corbucci movie starring Burt Reynolds. And it's a famous story where he hated the movie because he thought he was going over there to work with Sergio Leone and stuff.
Oh.
He got tricked into it, and he would always bad mouth it anytime somebody brought it up, and it's really not bad at all. It's actually really pretty decent, you know. So that's a good one. A good one is called A Bullet for the General, which was done by another Sergio Solima this time.
Okay.
There's a movie called Day of Anger with Van Cleef, and it's a good solid spaghetti western. There's so many of them, to come off with, like, and even The Mercenary, but that's another Corbucci movie. So,
okay.
So I mean, a lot of my favorites are by Corbucci and Leone and stuff like that. But there's a bunch of oddball ones, even in that genre, that I'm still finding them. I'm still on the search, finding these different movies and stuff, and that's what's fun about just being a fan now and searching out those kind of movies, because a lot of them are not easily found. They're not out with a really nice release with all the stuff on it and stuff. But yeah, I mean, I was going to mention like some of my like favorite westerns that are just westerns, like I guess U.S. westerns and stuff that you may or may not have heard of. There's a good movie called. Now, this movie will probably get you into being a Randolph Scott fan. It's called 7 Men from Now, and it's from 1956, and it's only available on DVD. But it's a great movie. I just watched it the other night. That will probably make you a fan of Randolph Scott. Another movie with him, it's called The Tall T, and that's a good one. It's actually got Henry Silva in it, playing one of the bad guys, and he's really good in it. And stuff like The Wild Bunch. Like, if you haven't never seen The Wild Bunch, which is pretty famous, Wild Bunch, it's a good one. There's a movie called Johnny Guitar. That's really good. It's got Sterling Hayden. Yeah, that's a pretty. It's an oddball movie. It's definitely oddball, but it's good. The Man from Laramie with Jimmy Stewart. That's a good one. And then like The Professionals from 1966. Burt Lancaster, and that's a great like guys on a mission. They're going to do this
Robert Ryan
rescue some. Robert Ryan, it's a good little cast there too. But some of those, I mean, if you can watch those and really get into them, you'll want to search out some of the other movies these people made, or directors even, and stuff.
Yeah, like
there's just a bunch of movies, like Rio Bravo, the Searchers, or definite movies to get you into John Wayne for sure. But yeah, those are some of my favorites that I always seem to come back to. Can you watch them anytime, just watch them and stuff like that. I don't know if you wanted to talk. There is a film noir that it's kind of hard to find. I think this might be the only release of it, and it's through VCI. But it's also got Evelyn Keyes in it. That was in 99 River Street. It's called The Prowler. Let's see if it'll pick up on here. Maybe.
It's doing It's doing like the Invisible Man thing. Oh, okay. Now I got it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's coming up there, but really good one. Eddie Muller's a big fan of this. Actually, he got this, got it to where they could get it restored finally and everything. And on this release, there's a bunch of special features that go into that. That's really fascinating what they had to do for one movie and stuff. But it's pretty racy and stuff for the day, and it's got a great cast behind the scenes and everything. So it's a definitely one that you want to get in, discover. And it, like, after that, when you're just like, oh man, it's one of those darker edged film noirs, and it's pretty cool. And I have to recommend that. And there's actually a book series on westerns I wanted to point out. I don't know if you can pick this one up, but it's called Six Gun Law.
Okay.
And there's 3 volumes. This is the 3rd volume. But it's basically like the Bible so to speak, of westerns from the 50s on, and like this one focuses on mostly movies from the 50s, but the first two one talks all about John Wayne's movies, Randolph Scott's, all the top western people, Jimmy Stewart, and talks about the movies, and it's really cool. That's a good place to like find them on here, and then find them out there in the wild somewhere. But those are on Amazon. You can find it all day on Amazon. Those books, that is.
Oh, okay.
Okay. I'm not sure if the Prowler is on Amazon. I'm sure you can get it on eBay for sure.
Okay.
But it's a cool one.
All right, I'll definitely try to get that one. That sounds awesome. Yeah, you mentioned Randolph Scott. I know you've also talked about Joel McRae. Of course, they were both in Ride to High Country, really Peckinpah movie. I think a lot of people forget about that one. That's a good one with Warren Oates too.
Warren Oates. Yeah. It's funny. That's like Joel McRae did a couple more westerns, but he basically hung up his hat, so to speak. But Randolph Scott definitely retired then. But that was like the beginning, really, of Sam Peckinpah. And then he did all these classic movies and stuff. But I love the background dudes and women. Warren Oates and some of those people that they pop up in all these movies and even TV shows. And stuff.
Yeah, he was on
and then
several episodes of Rawhide, Warren Oates, and The Rifleman, which was
Gunsmoke.
a Peckinpah show originally. Yeah.
That's what's cool about that too. So after a while, you start seeing all this like cross stuff, like TV show, movie, did this, and you kind of connect the dots. And after a while, you're just like you start to know these people and like what they did, and it becomes more interesting. And then you can kind of search them out, and stuff. But
you don't just get to be one of the four guys in the Wild Bunch out of nowhere. Like you know what I mean? You realize that you've been at it for like 15 years before that, and like dozens upon dozens of roles. That's what I like, going back and finding all those roles.
Like I had never really got into TV westerns or anything until a couple years ago, and started watching Gunsmoke. And all of a sudden, these people would pop up, and you're like, "Hey, I know that guy. I know that one."
Yeah, but you figure a long-running show like that, if you were a character actor, you were going to be on it. I mean,
Oh yeah, definitely.
But I'm almost.
I was gonna ask you, like, what would be like maybe your top 5 westerns that you've seen so far? Because
Well, let me just mention one that, because like I said, I am getting caught up on John Wayne. So I did get the Arrow version of The Shootist that came out. I'm also a big Don Siegel fan, so I had to get that. Yeah. And that one I sort of had vague memories of seeing when I was much younger. But so that was pretty good. But I'll tell you, the John Wayne movie I really like is El Dorado. I think that one is really good. What a good cast in that. James Caan and Christopher George has a good role in that.
Dean Martin. Was it Dean Martin?
I don't know if Dean Martin's in. But you know what? There's an older guy in that who actually uses a bow and arrow, and he really messes some guys up. And he's one of these guys that you were talking about, one of these like faces that you see time and time again. I forget his name, but I've seen him on episodes of The Rifleman and everything. I mean, he was old back then, so I don't know what his name is, but he was great. That whole cast was good in El Dorado. But having said that, I mean, I am an Eastwood guy, so I mean, my top 5 would be For a Few Dollars More, Good and the Bad and the Ugly, Once Upon a Time in the West, Wild Bunch, and Outlaw Josie Wales. That would be my top 5. Probably.
Yeah. That's a good. Yeah, that's a good one, man. I would have to. It's almost hard to make a list. For me, it's like I just can't come down to making a top 10. It's so hard. But yeah, it was Robert Mitchum that was in El Dorado. That's who it was.
Okay.
I was thinking it was the other guy, but Robert Mitchum.
Yeah.
But yeah, those. I mean, God, those are just great movies. I mean, Rio Bravo. It's just like Quentin Tarantino has called it like a hangout movie. Like you just put it on and it's almost like you're hanging out with these people. Like you get to know them like something. I don't know how he explained it exactly, but he's right. You know, the more you see it, the more it's like these people and characters and stuff like that. And,
I don't think I've seen Rio Bravo. That's probably like one of the big ones that I haven't seen. I know that people have said that Assault on Precinct 13 is kind of inspired by it in some capacity. You know, I know I've seen films that have been influenced by it, but that's really one of the ones out there that I haven't seen for classic movies.
John Carpenter, who made Assault on Precinct 13, was a big fan of Howard Hawks, who made Rio Bravo and El Dorado and stuff like that. He was a big fan of that movie. I think it's his favorite movie, actually. Right. So when he got the chance, he wanted to make a script kind of like that. They're hanging out, trying to figure out how to get out of this jail and all this stuff. And so you see a lot of it. So, yeah, you definitely got to check out Rio Bravo. I think they got it on 4K now, so I would check it out. It's a good one.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. I've got well, let me mention some more names. Let's get into some names, and if you want to bring up westerns or film noirs that they've been in, fine. Like we already mentioned, Elizabeth Scott. She was in Too Late to Hero, a lot of films. Then how about Ida Lupino?
Oh yeah. She was in some good ones, like even some early ones in the early 40s and stuff. And then she actually went on to directing.
Yeah.
And she was one of the few women directors during that time period. And she was freelance. She didn't belong. I guess you could call it a film noir, The Hitchhiker. I don't know if you've seen that one.
Yep, The Hitchhiker.
God basically kidnaps these two guys. Yeah. Well, she directed that, and that's a bona fide classic.
That's right. Because this is an Edmund.
Oh yeah, it's on there.
It's an Edmund O'Brien 2-pack. Yeah. That's right. Yeah, The Hitchhiker's pretty heavy. That's a good classic one. I like when the guy is like, he's got the gun on him and he makes him sleep, and they look up at him and he's kind of like his eyes are half shut, and it's like, is he sleeping? Or is he watching us? It's pretty creepy. Yeah.
That movie. I would be like, man, I'm just gonna have to get this guy somehow. He's not gonna hold the gun on me the whole time, and he ruined our fishing trip for one. And they were just gonna go fishing, and next thing you know, there's a manhunt for him.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Oh yeah, it's crazy movie, but yeah, she directed that, and she directed.
She was.
Oh, it kind of dropped out for a second.
Yeah. She was really like a pioneer. She wrote and directed and did a lot of different genres. Apparently, she was in a noir film called On Dangerous Ground, which I've seen the intro. Eddie Muller. But I haven't seen it, but I definitely want to check that one out for sure.
Oh yeah, that's really good. I think she actually plays a blind woman.
Yeah, that's
in it.
Yeah,
she's and it's got Robert Ryan in it, and he plays just a really sadistic, like I think almost like racist cop or something. Like he's just a bad guy. He's supposed to be a cop or something. I don't know. But it's a very very tense movie. Very tense movie.
He was like, he had that kind of like that same quality of as Dan Duryea. You know what I mean? Like, not a guy you want on your bad side.
And what's funny about both of those, they're in real life, they were like the sweetest family guys ever. You know, they were nothing like the roles they did and stuff.
Yeah. How about Richard? Here's a name for you, Richard Conte.
Oh, very good that you brought that one up because one of my favorite film noirs is The Big Combo,
Oh,
and
okay.
he's in that. And actually, he's in it, but also uh, the guy from we were talking about earlier. Well, I forgot his name again from the Quatermass movie. Don Levy.
Don Levy. Yeah.
He's in. Yeah, he's in it, and he has a hearing aid all through the movie. And Richard Conte's really like fast talking stuff. He would go up to him and like yell in his ear and stuff, and he's real smooth in that movie.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a great one. It's got Lee Van Cleef.
Okay. Okay.
Lee Van Cleef. Lee Van Cleef's in that, but definitely the Big Combo. That's definitely one you want to check out.
Definitely, I definitely will. Because
and,
I just
Richard
saw
Conte's in that, and he's in a lot of.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say I just saw him in.
I think we're okay. I think we can drop out.
No problem. I just saw him in a movie called New York Confidential with Broderick Crawford, and man, he was pretty mesmerizing.
Yeah, he's one of those actors that he was popular during his time, but not so much now. And he's somebody that went over to Italy and did like the Italian crime movies, those Euro crime movies, and he made a bunch of them. Along with some other, like Telly Savalas and a bunch of people went over there later on in their careers and made Euro crime movies in Italy and stuff because they needed that big name American star to kind of put there. You know what I mean? To sell them. And but Richard Conte's he was in a good amount of classic film noirs. I mean, really, he's actually one of my favorite actors in when you think about that genre because he's always good.
Yeah.
I was gonna say he wasn't always the bad guy. He was a little mixture of good guy, bad guy, stuff. But always fascinating.
Okay, yeah, I definitely got to get into his films a little more. And then we got to mention. I know we mentioned the movie already, but Anne Savage in Detour, right? Or Anne Savage in general. She's she's like one of the films that's out, right? I mean,
yeah. Like that movie it makes me laugh. It's such an enjoyable movie. Cat walked by the dog. The dog hates the cat. Hang on. But anyways, but yeah, she is so mean, man, into that guy in Detour, and it almost just makes you laugh, but it's believable. Just how mean she is to him and stuff. And she went down in history as famous for that role and stuff. And that's one of those movies that I can watch 100 times. It's I don't know. It's definitely done on the cheap, but it's done very inventively and all that. And there's a Criterion Blu-ray of it out. That's the definitive version of it, and it looks great. And they showed how they restored it and stuff. And it
cool.
Really good.
Yeah.
So,
cool.
That's the one to get.
How about Woody Strode? Thoughts on Woody Strode?
Oh, Woody Strode's great too. I mean, westerns, and he did Euro crimes too.
Did he? Okay.
Yeah, but he's also in Keoma and stuff. And he's really good in that.
And I get where I had it. I mean, this might not be the best movie, but where is it? Right here. I really like The Unholy Four. I mean, I thought it was fun.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, he's kind of like playing the strong man in that, even though the other guy, Leonard Mann, I forget who. Is it Leonard Mann? And anyway, the one guy is like 6'6", but Woody Strode is supposed to be like this strong man. he's great. Of course, he was in the beginning of Once Upon a Time in the West. Then he showed up. I think he has a cameo in Posse. Remember Posse from back in the 90s? Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, but yeah, he was really just he should have been more popular than he was, because he would be. He's good in all the movies I've seen him in so far, and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And he was, yeah, I mean, he was really good. And he's in The Professionals too, that movie I was talking about earlier.
Right,
and, that's one of his best movies. And he's using the bow and arrow in that movie too, and he does in Keoma and stuff. So he must have been somebody that was known. He actually could use it off screen and stuff. Like he was a fan of the bow and arrow, apparently. Yeah.
How about got to mention Audie Murphy?
Oh yeah, Audie Murphy is one of my favorite actors, Western actors. I did a video on him with my collection of his and stuff, and I mean, he was the real deal. I mean, he was one of the most decorated, soldiers in World War II, and he was kind of a short guy. He was a little guy, and you wouldn't think that about watching movies with him in and stuff, but he made up for it and stuff like that, with his courage and delivery in the movies and stuff like that. But yeah, a lot of his movies are really good, entertaining. You rewatch a lot. He did a lot of them, and I don't think he set out to be like, I want to be a Western star. He just kind of fit that role really good and stuff. And he did some really good ones, and he's worth checking out. And his movies are always on TV, it seems like, especially if you get the Grit channel, the channel Grit TV. It's a streaming channel, but a lot of times his movies are on there and stuff. But yeah, I mean, he was kind of the real deal. He was kind of a real,
I mean, he played himself in To Hell and Back, and he, 5 years after the war, he plays himself into Hell and Back. He still looked like he wasn't old enough to get served in a bar.
Oh, I know, right? Yeah, like I think he lied about his age to get into the army to begin with. I think he was only 17 or something. But he, oh God, there's a story about, what was it? Audie Murphy. I was trying to think of something. Yeah, he kind of got in there early, so he always had like a baby face. Yeah, he looked younger than he was, and he did a bunch of movies. Gosh, I'm trying to think what I was going to say. I don't know. Never mind. I'll think of it. It was something about him.
Yeah. Now I know they have some. I think there's like three film Audie Murphy sets. Do you have those, or do you have like individual?
Well, I already have those in other editions and stuff, so I never did pick up any of those. But yeah, those are good starting points. Like there's one like what was it? No Name on the Bullet or something like that. But yeah, his good period of westerns are like, I'd say about the mid 50s all the way to mid to late 60s. He did just a lot of good movies.
Yeah, I gotta check those out for sure. Okay, how about I got a name for you?
I need to like send you a list.
Okay, that would be great. Yeah, that'd be great. Speaking of the beginning of Once Upon a Time in the West, how about Jack Elam?
Oh well, yeah. I mean, he wasn't somebody that starred in his own movies or anything like that. He was basically always a character actor, but he was one of those faces, and he was in film noir. He was in
Kansas City Confidential.
Of course, he was in. Yeah, of course, he was in westerns, and he just always had that look and stuff. And he was one of those guys that would just get slapped around and stuff like that. And I thought he was a good actor. I thought he was a pretty good actor. He was on TV. He was on a lot of TV shows.
Sure. Stuff. He was in Night of the Grizzly with Clint Walker, and I just saw a really oddball on Tubi called A Knife for the Ladies. It's almost like a giallo film set in the Old West, but he's sort of like the recognizable guy they put in there. You know what I mean? And he plays like a kind of a drunk sheriff, you know, which a role he could probably do in his sleep.
Yeah.
He was so good at those kind of things, you know.
Yeah. Well, the first time I ever saw him was in Cannonball Run as that doctor in the back of the ambulance and stuff, and he was kind of creepy, kind of fascinating. As well, like, who is this guy? What's wrong with him? You know, yeah, it's like, what's wrong with this guy?
Yeah, we had the guy. You know, he put his eye out with a pencil when he was in elementary school, and so that was a fake eye. But when I saw him in Kansas City Confidential, at first I didn't recognize him because he was much skinnier. He was very skinny, but that face and that eye, I was like, oh, okay, I know who this is now. That was really cool to see him in that.
Yeah, and his lips, for some reason. There's something about his lips. I can't put my finger on it, but yeah, he's recognizable, and that's a good movie to recommend. And I thought that was a really good one. The script, actually, because they meet this guy, they don't know anything about anybody, and they pull this thing off, and it's like, well, that's a genius ideal for a script for a film noir, you know.
Yeah. So. And for me, I'm watching that, and they introduced them one by one. So it's like Lee Van Cleef, Jack Elam, and then I forget the name of the other guy.
Gosh, I should know this.
Yeah. Another one of those character actors that was in everything.
Yeah.
He was in The Mob. He was in a lot of movies. Neville Brand.
He had that look.
Yeah.
And it's like I always think he's somebody else when I see the name Neville, because I think of an English actor. I think of an English actor. I don't think of that guy. And then he starts talking, and it's like, oh yeah, that's Neville Brand. And it's like it just messes me up every time I see it. I don't know why.
That messed me up for so long. Now I finally got who he is, but you know, because he would be in like horror movies when he was older. He was, you know, in the Twilight Zone, you know, just like Jack Elam was. I mean, it took me forever to figure out to match his name to his face.
Yeah, no, it's like I saw him. He might have been in like an English movie at one point, and I thought, okay, Neville Brand. I thought that was somebody else. I don't know.
Right. All right, I got a couple more here for you. Next one, not a nice person in real life, but Klaus Kinski. Of course, he was in The Grand Silence, which I just
Klaus Kinski.
Man, that was good. The Grand Silence blew me away. I didn't know what to expect. That was very different. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. You wouldn't expect him being the way he is. Like, he just doesn't care. He just wants the money. It shows him, like, all through the movie, just counting his money in front of people. Like, I'm getting these, he's got all these bodies stacked up. And I think that's what Quentin Tarantino took from that stuff with the bodies.
Yeah.
For that the Hateful Eight movie.
Yeah.
You know. But he's really good, and he's in all these oddball spaghetti westerns, and he's really good in them and stuff. Yeah. But he's also good in some movies he made with Werner Herzog, the German director.
Yeah. I watched the one. I did see the one documentary about the making of Fitzcarraldo, where they're like screaming at each other the whole time. It's totally wild.
Yeah. There's a documentary called My Favorite Fiend, and it's a friend fiend, and it's his story about their relationship. The director made it, and it's all about them two. It shows all kinds of crazy stuff that he did. It's on film and stuff. And he was a troubled person off screen, but I don't know.
Yeah.
But he's usually fascinating in whatever he's in. He kinda,
exactly.
Yeah, he steals the show when he's on screen. He's just, you know.
Yeah. Even in for a few dollars more, you know, the little bit he's in that, he's like, yeah. Um, all right. How about Harry Dean Stanton?
Oh yeah, yeah. Harry Dean Stanton. Oh man, he's another actor. I like most stuff that he's in. I mean, he's been in everything from Repo Man to westerns and TV and all kinds of stuff. He's actually from my home state,
Okay.
Kentucky. He's actually and stuff, but he's just been in so many things, and he was just a natural actor. He was just so natural, you know. And that's what he gave. He was realistic and stuff. But
yeah,
he's another one of those guys that you just love him.
Oh yeah, I mean, I knew him from like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. I thought he was really good in the Missouri Breaks with Nicholson. Him and Nicholson were kind of like, you know, vying for like, you know, they both had different ideas about where the gang should be heading. That was one of his like beefier, like meatier roles. I thought that he was really good in that. But yeah, what a you know, just whenever you see him in a movie, you're like, oh, this is probably going to be a good movie, like you said.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, he's another actor that never had like a starring role. Well, actually, there was a movie called Paris, Texas.
Oh yeah,
Paris, Texas that he was in, and I was pretty much the star of it. But he was always like just a supporting actor most of the time. But
yeah,
kind of like Warren Oates, you know, he was always kind of, you know, he had a few starring roles, but not many. But,
right.
But yeah, great actor.
And next we have someone who played Harry Dean Stanton's brother in a movie. Harry Dean Stanton doesn't show up to the end of the movie. The straight story. Richard, how about Richard Farnsworth?
Oh, what movie was it? It kind of blocked out.
Oh, Richard Farnsworth was in a David Lynch movie, The Straight Story. And at the end of the movie, Harry Dean Stanton shows up as his brother. But, you know,
oh yeah,
Farnsworth
yeah,
a lot of
yeah. Yeah. That's a good one. That's such an oddball movie for David Lynch, even, you know.
Yeah, right.
He kind of did just a regular kind of movie, but had a good story to it. Yeah.
But as far as westerns go, like he's one of those guys. He just looks like he's from that like time period. You know, I know he was like a stunt man, and I think he's uncredited in Outlaw Josie Wales, but he was definitely in some.
He could be.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. He just the way he looked, kind of like Jack Elam. He just.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't know. There was something so natural about them, you know, almost like they just came off the street and here they are. Right. And I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you ever see? There's I think it's a Canadian movie called The Gray Fox, where he plays a train robber who comes out of retirement. Yeah, that was a good one. People.
That's a real good one, Richard. Yeah, Richard Farnsworth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's a good one, and that's such a movie that I'm kind of geared towards, because it's like it's such an oddball movie, but at the time, you know, it had a regular release and it wasn't some oddball movie, but now everybody kind of forgot about it. It's like
definitely like
it's a good one,
a forgotten film. You know, he's one of those guys that looked old for so long. I think when The Straight Story came out, people were like, well, this is, you know, the end of his career. People were saying that about the Gray Fox 15 years before.
Yeah, he did, didn't he? He just looked old for the longest time, you know, had the natural gray hair and stuff. You know?
Yeah. But, well, I can't, I'm at the end of my list of actors and so forth. Actually, let me ask you one more about director I skipped over. I know we've already touched on, but Anthony Mann did a lot of both, really.
Yeah, Anthony Mann. He's one of those actors, or directors that were like I'm going to use the word auteur, like an auteur director. Like I would follow directors like that because they always kind of did something a little different than most other people. Kind of like Nicholas Ray was kind of like that.
Okay. Yeah, you mentioned.
But yeah, he started off. Yeah, he started off like in the like the low budget movies of the low budget black and white crime movies, like what we were talking about, the T-Men. We were talking about like T-Men and everything. And then he in the 1950s, when he hooked up with Jimmy Stewart, and those Jimmy Stewart westerns and him are like, I think they did about 5 or 6 of them. Those are like some of my favorite westerns of all time, what they did. And Jimmy Stewart, you wouldn't expect would be like one of those actors, and he was just so good in those westerns that he did with him. And those are all definitely ones to check out. Jimmy Stewart and Anthony Mann. And then later on, like in the 60s, he did these like big epics. These big epics over in Italy, like he did the Fall of the Roman Empire.
Oh, okay.
And a movie with Charlton Heston called El Cid.
Okay. Yeah.
And he did stuff like that. And then I think he passed on in the early 70s. He did something, and that was it. But like the 50s, he did all these great westerns, and then he did big like epics in the 60s and stuff. Right. But he's definitely a director to check out for sure.
Yeah. I love Jimmy Stewart, so I'm definitely gonna have to check those out. But that's awesome, the way he like just kept working his way up.
Yeah, they had a falling out. They were going to keep doing stuff, and they had a falling out for something, and they never worked again. But they had such a good director-actor relationship, kind of like now you would see like somebody working with Quentin Tarantino, like he's in all their movies and stuff. Yeah. It's kind of like that. He used them, and they worked well together. And starting with Winchester 73 and stuff like that. So yeah, good stuff. Guaranteed good stuff. And after I kind of got into those and like rediscovered like Randolph Scott, I really got into westerns, especially the 1950s westerns and stuff, because they started being more darker edged and stuff. Right, it's like this was stuff not for kids on Saturday morning. These were like adult, darker edge stuff that this is after World War II, and all these people coming back. They've seen all kinds of horror in Europe, and they want realism now, because so they're real realistic and stuff like that. And then the same thing with film noir. I think that's why it was so popular after the war ended and stuff. And so just some really good stuff came out.
You have all these.
There's also a good movie called The Big Heat.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, I jumped genre real quick, but I was going to mention that earlier. But with Clint, there's a movie called The Big Heat with Glenn Ford. And, he's in it, and I think it's got kind of a young Lee Marvin in there as one of the bad guys, and I want to say Lee Van Cleef was in that. I'm not sure though, but that's a good one. And I think Criterion is putting out a new 4K of it this summer. It's supposed to come out, so I would definitely check that out. That's a great film movie to get.
I'll definitely check that one out.
Checking out, like going off again.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, it's amazing, like how some of the plots of those film noir were guys coming back from World War II and trying to fit in. And then I've even read, like, as far as actors go, like Jimmy Stewart's, his demeanor was different when he got back, and I think that influenced the type of roles that he took. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of those guys were different. And in fact, speaking of Neville Brand, he had PTSD so bad on the set of The Twilight Zone that Rod Serling had to go into his trailer and like talk to him. which is why Neville Brand like drove across the country to go Rod Serling's funeral years later, you know. But
Oh,
yeah,
yeah. Okay, that's what I was going to talk about when we were talking about Audie Murphy. He was a big proponent of mental illness and PTSD and stuff like that. And he was one of the first like stars that would talk about it and stuff. He had it so bad, he suffered through it throughout his life, and he would talk about it, and he did this and that. Brought attention to it because everybody called it shell shock back then, but it's really PTSD, and everything. So he was one of the original people. Like, hey, this is happening to people. And, nobody wanted to talk about it and stuff. So so I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, he was like ahead of his time. I know he also he had a problem with pills, and he actually took his brother-in-law. And he said, we're gonna check into a hotel, and we're not coming out until I'm sick to have it with pills. He was like, nobody was talking about pill addiction back then. They might have been talking about alcoholism or something like that. But he wasn't afraid to bring attention to those kind of issues.
Yeah. He was, and him being such a big name person at the time, people really listened to him, and stuff. So I thought that was really cool. Yeah. And because that was all the way back in like, I don't know, I think the 50s, late 50s, early 60s, and he was talking about that. People, didn't know what it was, and didn't really talk about it. So,
right. Yeah. Well, I saw, man, there's one episode of Rawhide with Bill, can't remember Robert Culp, where he essentially was playing a Civil War soldier with PTSD who's addicted to pills. And they don't call it PTSD because they call it back then. But this episode is so far ahead of its time. I just couldn't believe what I was watching. I was like, it was really something else.
Yeah. Yeah, they would do that back in the day in TV. They would slip those scripts in. A lot of times they wouldn't let stuff like that happen, but when they did, like that was awesome. It was crazy for the time period, right? Especially like you said, Rod Sterling's some of his other stuff besides Twilight Zone. He would talk about that stuff, and it was way ahead of their time.
Oh yeah, he was way ahead of his time
with all that. Yeah. So that was amazing. But I don't know, but I guess I wanted to talk about some other some movies like in the 70s, like Little Big Man. Have you seen Little Big Man with Dustin Hoffman?
Okay, now I remember sort of being in the room when my dad was watching it. You know what I mean? But I wasn't intentionally watching it, and I think some of it was over my head. You know what I'm saying? But I know of it, of course. Yeah. It's a good movie. It's kind of semi-comic. It's got Faye Dunaway and everything in it and stuff. He's kind of like the oldest. Starts out with he's telling this story. He's like 110 years old, and he was at the Battle of Little Bighorn, and he's trying to tell like what happened, and it just basically shows his life and stuff. But it's kind of like the 70s movies, like the revisionist westerns, like like you mentioned, Butch Cassidy and the Wild Bunch and stuff like that. And it's a pretty good movie. And here's an oddball movie for you. It's got Burt Reynolds in it. It's early 70s. It's called The Man Who Loved Cat Dancing. Oh, I think I've heard of it.
I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a funny name, but it's a pretty decent Western. And like if you're wanting to see something different, like something oddball, that's an oddball movie. The Man Who Loved Cat Dancing.
All right.
And another movie around the same time, Rough Night in Jericho. That's got George Peppard and Dean Martin in it, and I thought it was a pretty good movie. Dean Martin's, I think he actually played more of a bad guy, like as opposed to how he usually is, kind of a good-natured character. But he's more of a bad guy in that movie. And you know, George Papard, of course, from the A Team and everything like that. He's in it. It's a pretty decent Western that's just kind of odd. Like, yeah, I never heard of this thing, you know?
All right.
So I thought maybe somebody would check that out.
Okay. Yeah, I know that.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say there's a bunch of them, you know, but we could be here all night talking about all these odd movies that you definitely would enjoy. It's just, it's, you know, finding it and watching it and stuff, you know.
Right. Yeah. Well, this has been, Mike. This has been awesome.
I think we talked about most of the. Yeah, it's been fun, man. It's I like this.
Yeah, for sure. You know, if there's, you got anything?
Yeah, I've had a lot of fun. Yeah, we almost need to have like a part 2 sometime to kind of.
Yeah, absolutely. Because there's so many more people and directors.
Oh, anything upcoming?
Yeah, you have anything upcoming on your channel?
Yeah. Upcoming. Not really. I'm wanting to do my own live stream one day. Just I want to do one every once in a while, but I've done one with Gino, but I'll maybe try to get that in the books. I had one going and it had to cancel it because of weather a month ago. But I'm gonna put out some new stuff. I got some new stuff in the can, so to speak. I don't know. Not anything in particular, just same stuff. But yeah, I'm wanting to do some new stuff. I've got some new ideals I want to maybe put out and stuff. So just keep watching. You're going to see some newer stuff and change the channel around a little bit.
Okay. So, cool. Well, I'll tell you, a few weeks ago, Patrick from Have Cheetah Will View and Kenny and we covered the first episode of The Fugitive. So I think once in a while, I want to take a TV show and cover the first episode or two. You know, some of them are only half an hour long. So if maybe we can like pick a Western in some future, a Western show, and just kind of dissect it a little bit.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. I've been watching a lot of The Rifleman and Gunsmoke, and I haven't been able to catch a lot of Rawhide, but I like Rawhide a lot, but I haven't been able to catch it as much. So, yeah, that's a good idea. See, I've thought about doing that too. Maybe go through even the Twilight Zone, just a couple episodes and talk about them and stuff and everything. But yeah, that's a great idea, man. Yeah, just let me know and we can do it.
Okay, cool. Awesome. All right. Well, I just want to remind everybody, check out Mike's channel, Mike's DVD and Blu-ray collection. And this has been a lot of fun. And I'll go ahead and end the stream. Mike, just hang out for a second. But I appreciate everyone coming out. And we'll talk to you next time.
Yep. Thanks, man. Thanks, Dan.
No problem.